Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful evening. And I myself am feeling just a little under the weather, so I am going to have my screen off tonight. And I hope that you had the kind of weather we had here today. It was just beautiful. Let's head into Collectively Rewilding. All right, here we are in Collectively Rewilding, and there is a lot going on both here in the community and here as a physical location with the garden. I shared a post with you all a little bit earlier. Let's actually look in the featured section. Miss Tammy has been active as usual, and she's got a lot of great information out there for you all to share or to all go through. Again, I apologize, just not quite feeling it today. So with the condition of the soil that we had here when we arrived and purchased this property, the backyard was primarily dead soil. The soil off to the east side, almost really into a side area there, had better topsoil. So this is where the sunken garden is located. And so it did the best of all of the different types of wildflowers and ground cover that we put down. This is the most plentiful area that had some success. We saw a lot of seedlings that would come up and they would get to about maybe 1/4 of an inch or a little bit higher, and then they would die out, which is not surprising considering the condition of the soil. Each little seedling that does that, though, is contributing back into the healthier progression of the soil here as the Collectively Rewilding Garden. I'm really glad that we had some success. The last property that we brought life to the soil, the backyard was actually in a maybe a little bit better condition than what the soil here was in the main part of the backyard. However, it did, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. It didn't do well at all for the first year. We got very minimal return. This is a lot better return than what we got on the first property that had similar soil conditions. That was partly because it being our own property, we put more into getting the wood chips and putting them down. We had to get permission from our landlady to get the wood chips in the previous property. I didn't learn about them until after we'd already been there for a year or so. And then when I did get her permission and put in for a wood chip drop at getchipdrop.com, it didn't arrive in time. And we knew at that point that we were going to purchase our own property, so we didn't renew our request. Came here, put out a request. Thank goodness we got a much quicker return on that request than we have on the preceding requests. We've put in 2 more requests, and I need to put in a 3rd because there's just not been anybody in this further out area. Tammy Larson, who is most likely here with us tonight. Oh, yes, that's right. I was able to make her co-host before we got started. She mentioned a really good idea about trying with the electrical companies in your area. If you're looking for wood chips, and the getchip.com, get wood chip. Oh my goodness, I can't talk tonight. I do apologize. Getchipdrop.com. It is a hard one to wrap your mouth around, but that was a little bit silly. So let me just share that with you all. Getchipdrop.com. It is a .com rather than a .org, a .edu, or a .gov, something like that. However, this is almost really like a .org because as the consumer, as the person looking for the wood chip drop, you don't have to pay anything. You can get a completely free wood chip drop. You can choose to donate anywhere between $20 and $80 to encourage someone to want to drop at your property, but they don't get that money. Instead, they get to use the service at getchipdrop.com for free, $20 each time. So when I got our wood chip drop, I donated $40. So I got one wood chip drop that they didn't have to pay to use the site for. And when they go back to use the site again, they'll have another one because I donated $40 that they will be able to use the site again without having to pay for it. So very low cost. You get an entire, oh goodness, do they not have their big, here we go. You get an entire truckload of wood chips. They ask if you take some logs. Some people want no logs. Some people want all logs. You have those three choices, all wood chips, some logs, or all logs. I am always willing to take some logs. I definitely need the wood chips, so I would never ask for all logs. It was this big, guys. It was bigger than my little Kia Seltos 4-door. I don't know a lot about Kia, so I don't know if there are 2 doors, but it's a 4-door Kia Seltos, and the pile was a little bit bigger than my car. Very wonderful for me. Make sure you're ready for it, because if it comes, it will likely be large. Now, the neighbor that we had at the last property, she utilized this service, and she was able to get a chip drop before we were. Her pile was a lot smaller, so it can be smaller. She may have asked for it to be smaller. You have to put it in your instructions what you need in regards to certain things, like we don't want any black walnut or eucalyptus in the wood chips that we get. They're really bad for other plants, and so we don't want those, right? So we request that. They also request that you have 2 places available for the driver to pick from to drop the wood chips. Not on this property or the last property. Did I have 2 options? I just provided the one, explained I'm sorry, this is all I have. And they didn't have any problem dropping the wood chips on my problem on my property, and it didn't flag any concerns within the site or anything. So those are just some pieces about using it. It's a really great site. I talk about it all the time. I'll pop it here into sustainable organic soil creation and send out a notification to everybody so that you too can make use of this service if you're interested. If you are in a more urban area, you'll probably have a little bit more success. We are in the valley next to the Salt Lake Valley. So Salt Lake City is in that Salt Lake Valley, and we're the valley over. Different county, about 45 minutes outside of Salt Lake. However, that puts us into a more rural location. That's why I'm having trouble getting the service here. One of the things that I'm going to do, I did try to follow Tammy's suggestion and reach out to the electrical company here that services this area. I think there's more than one, but the Rocky Mountain Power Association, it's Rocky Mountain Power, something like that. Anyway, it's a relatively common power source in Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, I think maybe Nevada. There are several states that utilize it. However, when I contacted them, I met with someone who was willing to talk to me, passed me along to another person who was willing to talk to me. It was really nice. You don't always get that. And what it worked out to is that Rocky Mountain Power is underneath the umbrella of a company called Pacificorp. And that is the overall incorporation or corporate entity that they work under, and they have a nonprofit foundation. So my next step will be to reach out to that nonprofit foundation and introduce this service to them, and the idea that within their community outreach as a nonprofit to be incorporated, you have to have a community outreach element in every area that you do business, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I'm learning about nonprofits while I'm turning a portion of Collectively Rewilding into a nonprofit, but it's still not my area of expertise. I rely heavily on Megan Pater from Fund Nation to help get us established there. So when I reach out to them, I'll expose them to the service if they're not aware of it, and also just ask if there's any way that something like this could be arranged, whether through this service or making it more under their own control where they start doing it internally, something like that. Of course, that doesn't have the quick turnaround. If they were to think about something like that, it wouldn't be a source that I'm going to be able to rely on immediately to get my wood chips. So while I'm taking that route, I'm also going to look up all of the tree trimming services in this area and the closest part of the Salt Lake Valley, Magna and West Valley, to see if they would be interested in doing this for the Get Chip Drop, as well as perhaps bringing one out to my apartment. Or, oh my gosh, you guys, I am so sorry. I cannot talk tonight. I have just not felt well today. So I apologize again. Into my home area here, right? So those are the things that I'm doing in order to keep costs low here. We have a lot of things that we want to do. Each one of them take a certain amount of investment. I'm going to start reaching back out to the NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the lady that I've been working with, to ETSA. She should have had her baby by now, and I'm hoping that maybe she's back into the flow of things. And if not, then I'll reach out to the overall service and start the process over again. And so those, again, are all the steps that you need to take in order to keep your costs low when you're starting these ventures that are, yes, quite costly. Even doing a smaller garden, depending on how does it, can cost a lot of money. I believe in looking for ways that cost less, and as we talk about all the time, bring in less resources from other locations, trying to work more with what is already there, or use resources that would become waste materials like wood chips from tree trimming services. With the condition that we have here, if we're not able to get these tree trimming services to bring us a wood chip drop, we have enough left that we can easily go ahead and buy the more manicured wood chips. We will get the finest processed without any kind of dye or chemical addition for the front yard, because when they were selling this property, they depleted the soil in the front yard so badly. It doesn't matter. The very next moment after the water is done, there's not any kind of turnaround in the greenery on the front yard. I don't believe in overwatering. I believe in healing the soil so that it doesn't need excessive water in order to maintain a false sense of health. So we've started with manual aeration, and it was work. It wasn't bad. We just got a little hand push rolling bar style tool. I'll take some pictures of it for you guys. I'm sorry, I should have thought to do that before class today. And it took me probably an hour and a half to do the whole front yard. It's already showing better water retention. And also we had been putting down some treatments with raw, unsalted seaweed wrap recommended by M.I. Gardner. I talk about it off and on, something I believe in, using more natural fertilizers and pest control. I thought it was a great idea. I personally don't eat a lot of seaweed, so I don't utilize that resource a lot. And I feel like that's kind of a fair trade-off to not bringing in a lot of resources. It's a small bag, and I don't really eat anything that takes any seaweed. My children and my husband, on the other hand, they do a little bit, but that's not going to be completely possible. You are going to need to bring some resources in if you don't want to have to take years and years and years to gain a decent amount of soil health. So minimal is the goal, but there will be some small additions from outside beyond pure waste that will have to be introduced, right? It doesn't take much. All you do is get that seaweed wrap, take a sheet of it. I rip it up into little bitty pieces so that it's easier for it to break down in the water. Definitely do it in an outside or well-ventilated garage or garden shed type of a situation. It is stinky. You want to let it break down at least 2 or 3 days. Put it in your gallon-style watering can and put it out over the area that you want to improve. Be aware that you're breaking down this seaweed, which has a high gelatinous type of content. I don't know if it's actually, well, gelatin is made from animals, so it has a gelatinous quality. It is not gelatin, and it gels back up together a little bit. No matter how far it breaks down, it has a tendency to stick. And so it's going to stick up in your watering can holes. I have to rub it off regularly, and then when I go to fill the can back up to add another portion of the broken down seaweed water, I take the sprayer and just spray the can holes so that it loosens some of that material. And then you just kind of have to tilt your watering can back and then tilt it forward, rub it off a little bit sometimes to get the water to flow through. So it's definitely a process. Probably no great easy way to spread it. If any of you come up with something better, of course, I would love to hear it. This is the point that I am going to call it for all of the areas that have not been able to sprout any seedlings beyond initial sprouting stage. Keep the ones that are alive and healthy going strong so that the pollinators and the birds and all of the creatures that make up our ecosystem, we think of the pollinators only a lot, and that's what really covers our media and even our thoughts to some degree. However, all of the bugs in an ecosystem, even the bad bugs, as long as they're not the predominant number of bugs in an ecosystem, a little niche ecosystem that we all are working, whether it's a windowsill garden, a porch garden, or a farm, we're all working to create what we feel is the best environment for our processes, right? There's so many different ways of approaching this. I'm never going to tell you that my way is the best way. I believe the way that works for each of you, that you can believe in, that you think is a good step towards a positive future that you want to see, is the right one for each of you. I can help you to build any of those types of systems outside of pesticides. They have so many different words. In the end, they're death in a bottle, and they harm more than the creatures that they purport to keep away from your plants. They aren't very nice to our bodies. It's just not a very good sustainable system. And I don't just mean in an environmental sense. I mean in the idea of what sustainability is. No matter what system one applies it to, we're finding that these chemical solutions are not in the long term sustainable, even if someone believes in them. We need to be looking for other alternatives, and they really are doing that a lot. I encourage you all to think about all the different ways that you've heard, and think about the ways that have worked for you. For myself, container gardening, I have done it over and over and over again, and it is just not the best method for me. I'm going to keep trying. I want to be more successful in any area of gardening, and I think that having container gardens within the overall layout of what I have planned will really add a lot of definition and interest and color, some art, all of these different pieces. So, excuse me, I apologize. While I'm going to focus on in-ground growing, which is what I've always had the most success in, and that I've focused on because of that to a large degree, while always looking at other methods, we are going to showcase a wide variety of sustainable styles that are being explored around the globe here in our nice sized little residential plot garden, right? It's not a small land piece for a residential property. Oh my gosh, you guys, I just can't even find the words. I do apologize again. It is not a large property, but it is larger than your basic property, a little bit less than a 1/4 of an acre plot. So we have the ability to put in a lot of different structures to showcase all of the different ways that you can store water within your land. When you get over to the eastern side of the Continental Divide, especially as you're approaching the south and some on the East Coast, there's a lot more water. Kansas, Ohio, not so much, but the further east you go, the more water there is. And so that would be a completely different style of gardening. You wouldn't necessarily want to put these features in such large quantity especially not on a small property like this. You would end up having a very boggy set of structures with a sunken garden, 2 berm and swale systems. And for those of us who are joining us for the first time and haven't heard about some of these systems, a sunken garden, I imagine that gives you some sort of a visual image right off the bat. There are many different sizes and styles within a sunken garden. This one is small, being on that residential property. It's about 4.5 feet by maybe 3 feet. There are benches on the east and west side, and we're going to add back in one on the north side. That got dug out, miscommunication with my father, who was so generous to come up and help put all of these structures into our garden here. We were thinking we weren't going to be able to start until the fall, and now at that fall point, we should already be well into the soil in the backyard. We've already probably moved about a 1/6 or a 1/7 of the soil that was dug up between the sunken garden, the swales and berms, and the wally peony. And so we're further along, but it all happened so quickly that some little things like getting that north bench removed from the sunken garden are a part of moving forward, putting it back in there, right? Figuring out how I want to go about doing that, if I want to try to utilize small rocks and create a wall with rocks, or if I want to purchase materials, if I want to use wood. There's all of this different consideration, and I've never dealt with terracing before. It's a new venture for me. I have a group on Facebook that when we're ready to really dig into it, I'm going to reach out to for advice because they're all about terracing. I have had some success with the overall walls in that sunken garden. I don't know if we can see it very clearly in this picture or not. There's definitely some that you can see here, and there's some that have taken on this side. Not so much on the east-facing side. It doesn't get as much sunlight. There's a house right there, a fence right next to it, and a bunch of trees. So it's very niche. We get to play around with a lot of different types of growing, places where we can start earlier because it's just in that sunlight all day long, back to this cooler area where we can extend things that need a cooler season into the warm season, right? It's going to be a really fun property to play with once we get the overall soil health to the level that it can start supporting things like vegetables and a couple of fruit trees and things along that nature, right? You can also see where the lovely aspen tree is putting up some babies into this area, and that's going to just be a constant problem until we are able to get those aspens removed, if that's something that we're able to do. It is a horrible, horrible situation when aspen groves are planted into residential areas. I cannot recommend it against it strongly enough. I don't really understand the thought process of anyone that would come from an area that has aspens and choose to put aspens in the residential lot. But you got to deal with what you got, and it is beautiful. I love how it looks. You could go out there and lay in it, and you would feel like you were in a forest if you just laid down and looked up at the trees. It's amazing. So give and take to everything. It provides a lot of shade from the easterly sun, which is really the better sun in our area. Another benefit for our neighbors, which is good because they have to deal with all of the root systems as well. So all of the things that we have to deal with when we get a property, right? Nothing comes to us perfect unless we want to just spend gobs and gobs of money. Also, when we're doing that improvement, if we don't want to have to put in a tremendous investiture after purchasing a property, we have to work with what we have and actually care about the quality of the soil on the property as it is, right? We would have wanted to create an immediate garden. We would have had to have purchased probably around 1,000 pounds of different compost, topsoil, steer manure, chicken manure, all of those different elements that one can blend into a created soil structure on a property. That is a big investment. And especially since I believe in mulching everything, trying to immediately have that mulch and pay for that as well, you wouldn't have to provide as much. It would still be another huge investment, say a quarter to a third as much in the way of bags of manicured mulch. Different weight, but the size is comparable. Whatever 1,000 pounds of soil would look like comparatively with maybe a third as much mulch, that is a lot. I would even not want to contemplate it. I've never even looked at it. The bags of mulch I get are generally around, I want to say $3.50 a bag here in the Utah area, and a bag of compost is a little bit more, probably around $5.50 for a bag of compost. It's been several months. I don't know how much that situation has changed, but now extrapolate that to the area that you would have to cover in your garden. And that's why I really like that we're going to show you guys what it looks like to take a piece of land that has been completely neglected, has almost no life in it at all, and show you how to turn that into a functioning garden without spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, right? All right. So having said that, we're in the process of weaning the water off here in our area. We've gotten what we're going to get established. They're looking glorious. Definitely going to have that great food and environment. The bugs don't just use those types of plants for food. They live in and amongst them. They use them for their structures when they go to build their homes. We don't even completely understand a lot of what many pieces of the bug life out there are doing. Really try to think about how would you explore the life cycle of an outdoor gnat, right? How would one even go about doing that? I don't know. I'm sure that they've done some of it, but the amount of bug life that's out there is so plentiful. There's so much quick movement amongst so many of the different bug species and insect species that there's no way, I don't think, for them to ever truly know what goes on in a bug ecosystem. So when you leave up plants that are good for bugs through the fall, winter, and then a little bit into the spring so that all the eggs that are out there have hatched, whether that be something that you like a monarch butterfly, or something that isn't as pleasant like an elder bug, right? An elder, box elder bug. There we go. Not as pleasant. It's all a part of a functioning ecosystem. Spiders and all of it, right? So really, we're looking at creating something that's built from your soil up to your insect life, which is a part of your plant life, which will absolutely create a healthier environment for your soil, which will benefit your gardens in general. And so that is what our whole premise as a garden creation is, to start with the soil and work that into a healthy pattern that has a functioning, natural, as much as it's natural in this day and age, system with even the birds, the smaller mammals and reptiles, all of these different things. That is when you're going to start getting the best returns on anything that you do in your soil as your garden. Now, we will also walk anyone through all of the processes to create a garden where you don't have to work with your soil to such a level, right? There are so many different ways that one can approach this. And so as we wean the water off, I'll be spending a lot of time moving that soil, right? So lots and lots to move, and getting rid of some of the less desirable weeds on this particular property, it's primarily foxtails. The areas that we can mow, it's actually quite nice. It's almost like grass out there now. Not a problem on the areas we can mow. The areas we can't mow, I'm going to try my best to keep those seeds from becoming more and more embedded into the things like the berms and swales. Oh, and I apologize to those of you who are joining us new. I started explaining that and kind of left off with the sunken garden. So a berm and swale system is almost like creating a little wave in your land. And so the swale is the lower part, and some people have big properties, so they create what almost looks like a small river when they get a lot of water. There's one down in my home area in Southwest Colorado that my mom shared with me. They had a tremendous amount of water in the spring from the year where this video was made, and it was amazing. However, on a smaller property, we can't generate, nor would we want to generate such a large amount of water. So ours are much smaller, and they are about probably approaching 2 feet deep in the dip down swale element. And then they come up on one of them on the north side, on the other on the west side. So it'll create a little bit of shade for the swale portion from that westerly sunlight on the north-south running swale. The in-between areas where they meet is called a bund. It's a different sort of a system that is from tribal areas in Africa that they're really making heavy use of right now in that region. And you create almost a pie-shaped, slightly dented in or inclined dirt area, and you take that and you make a mound and like a little smiley face or half circle. That area is so close to the huge mound of dirt from the Walipini, which is a partially submerged greenhouse that is about probably 15 feet long and maybe 6 or 7 feet wide with a depth of about 4 feet. That's where all of the soil comes from primarily. And that soil mound is abutted right up against the east-west facing berm and the bund that is the corner piece that brings those two swale and berm systems together. And so the berm is like a little mound that is right next to the swale that we're going to add some logs, small logs into to create the Hugel Kultur style of water retention. Water batteries is a great way to think of it, that store a tremendous amount of water inside those little logs. We don't have the room for the big logs. We're just looking for little logs. And we also want the roots of the plants to be able to easily find movement around all of these little logs. And so once that has ground cover on it, both in mulch and living plants, and we've put the logs in for that Hugel Kultur element, as well as the sprinkler system, that is going to retain additional water that will help that swale keep the water that it retains as well. So for each foot that you dig your swale down, consider about a corresponding foot of additional water storage in your soil. With these being about 2 feet, it's going to go to about 2 feet of additional water storage under that swale. The berm adds onto that, and with that Hugel Kultur element, it will add just even a little bit more, which who knows, maybe it could even add another 2 or 3 inches, maybe more, probably not much more, into the area under those soil structures. The sunken garden is even better at retaining that water element. One, it is carved into the existing soil that was already better quality in that niche environment that doesn't get too much of that westerly sunlight and gets enough of the easterly and midday sunlight to really have the ability to even grow things like tomatoes possibly. It might have to move up towards the front half where there's more sun, but really you might even be able to get some tomatoes back in that area if you put them in the right part of the side area. So a real fun area to play over there with. And so it's retaining the water the best at this time without any of them having any mulching, and working at building the ground cover as a mulch as well. So it's interesting to see which soil structures are having the most traction. Now, once we get them further along, we'll have to look at it again. My guess is that really the sunken garden is probably going to be the best at retaining water no matter what, both because of its location and the structure style. The berms and swales with that bund as a connecting piece are going to capture all of the excess water that does come many times in the spring here. We get general small flooding throughout the area, can cause some definite problems in little hills or the folks that have the basements carved out of the ground in order to add a second apartment. They get some flooding, dips in the road, things like that. It's not this huge problematic time most of the time. The first spring we were here, it was. Some of the streets were flooded out, running like small rivers down some of the main roads. It was a real problem. But when we get those quick, heavy downpours, these soil structures are going to have such a great amount of water to store into them that we may only have to water 4 or 5 times a year as they get fully established. That would be the goal. There are some regions where after a year or two of sprinkling or irrigation, you may not have to water at all. That would be amazing. In the drier regions like this, you almost always are going to have to water at least 2 to 3, maybe as many as 4 or 5 times, because the wind and the sun combined just suck that water out of the soil. So it's a definite battle here to keep that water in the soil. And those are all the steps that we're taking in order to have a more sustainable impact with a healthier environment. And in that, there's a consideration for us all as well. How much are we going to change our natural environments? The structures that I'm creating here will actually make this almost like a little oasis in the desert naturally. That changes the environment. As humans, as a species, I believe that we are going to change our environment. We have to decide how we're going to change our environment. So while I'm going to introduce an element of water storage in a desert that wouldn't normally have that, I'm going to avoid doing things like introducing invasive species. I'm going to try to incorporate native species, not only as ornaments or great additions to any garden because of their ability to use less water and all of these wonderful things, also as edible pieces of the garden. I want to begin to play with things like nopales, which is prickly pear, a type of cactus that grows in the Four Corners, not necessarily in this region, but we could probably have some if we really kept the water that we're going to be having off of that area, made sure that we created a garden bed that had a lot of soil with really good water draining, so that when we do get those deluges, it just drains right out of that soil. The areas that have cacti generally will have a monsoon period, so they are used to huge bursts of water, but then they want to really dry out and they don't want to see that over and over again. So I believe that we could have a small cacti garden here, and I'd like to play with things like yucca for the strings that come off of the succulent. I don't think they're called petals. Fronds, maybe. I'm forgetting the word. They have the strings that can be used as, well, string that come off the edges of the plants, possibly some aloe vera. That one wouldn't probably overwinter. I would love to see if it did anything in the soil. Take it inside, see if that transitions, and playing with the container gardens. Yucca and aloe vera are both really positive plants to have around for a variety of reasons. We learn more and more about aloe vera. Of course, it was such a big deal and a really trending drink and gel and all of these things there for a while. And aloe vera has always been known to have a lot of different medicinal qualities, right? So it's fun to play with all of these different things and try to have a more positive impact on the environment rather than a negative impact when we choose how we're going to change each of our own environments. All right, guys. I would love to answer any questions that any of you have or hear about anything that you're all doing in your gardens and your container gardening. Perhaps you do the windowsill or porch gardening, anything at all. We have about 12 of us here. Please feel free to just go ahead and unmute yourselves, or if you'd feel more comfortable raising your hand, you'll find the raise your hand feature in the Zoom toolbar that came with class. On a phone, you may need to tap your screen and or swipe left or right, and then possibly tap again to expose that toolbar. Once you find that toolbar, on the far left side, you should see a microphone with a red line through it that's called audio. You can unclick that to have your microphone open, or you can take your eyes and move to about the middle of your toolbar, where many of you will have a big heart that's called react. Click that. You'll see the raise your hand feature and a variety of other reactions you can take. If you don't have that big heart, just continue on with your eyes to the far right side of your screen on your toolbar, where you should have a 3-dot menu, a 3-dot more menu, or a more menu. Click that. You'll see the reactions tab. Again, click that and you'll see the raise your hand feature and a variety of other reactions you can take. Let's see if we have, oh, there was a hand raised, it looked like. Jamie, how can we help you today?
No, I just wanted to kind of say thank you. My father has a green thumb. I have a brown thumb. My skin's brown, but that was a terrible joke. But I love this stuff, so I'm gonna be coming here more. I think that's pretty cool. I always wanted to start gardening, so this is really cool to just listen to. No questions. I just thought this was really awesome. I appreciate
Thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate it. I love it all,
it.
right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you're talking about taking a walk in the park with your dog, going for
No, this is
a hike,
cool.
or gardening
Yeah.
outdoors, right?
Yeah. That was really awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. And so you said your dad has a green thumb. Have you tried anything? Is there anything that you're wanting to do where you are?
Well, so he did, right? So he had like in the front of our house, I remember it being like a like I don't know how to describe it, like botanical gardens. Like it had like roses and you name it, like beautiful flowers. And he
Mm.
built that from the ground up and it looked so like beautiful. Like if you drove past my house, that was like the first thing you saw. And then in the back, he did like vegetables. We had tomatoes, cucumbers. He just like was just so cool with that kind of thing. And I just always lacked that. Even though I like saw him do it, I never really learned how he did it, which is, one of his cool traits that he had when he wasn't working. So yeah.
I feel like that was something that several of the most recent generations are kind of lacking, right? They may or
Yeah.
may not have been around it even, but even when they were, it was more of an experience, not an
Yeah.
instruction, you
Yeah.
know? And that's because many of our parents, they were so busy, both of them out of the home, that
Hmm.
one, you didn't rely on the garden. It wasn't a part of the necessities of your life. And two, it became more of a luxury or hobby than a skill that was
Oh yeah.
passed on generation after generation, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's a part of regaining it, I think. I feel like we're
Hmm.
all missing that. I feel like we don't have something and we can all feel that inside ourselves. And I think for
Yeah.
many of us, it's nature and community in
Yep.
varying degrees.
Yeah. That's really cool. Well, thank you for this. I'll be coming here more, so I appreciate it.
Well, we'd love it. It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of ways to go about interacting with it. So don't feel like you can't turn that green thumb green yet, right? Like if you can get there, or that may not be where you want to make your pursuits, and perhaps you wanted to look into something else that would make you feel that connection with nature more
Yeah.
regularly in your life, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Jamie. Thank you for speaking up.
Yep.
All right. Wendy, How are you doing? And I think maybe I've worked with both of you. Wendy, I know I've worked with you before. You have a distinct spelling there. And then Jamie, you have a pretty distinct spelling as well. Have we worked together over in Let's Go Help too?
I've been in the group for I
In
want
a
to
class, I
say I've been in some classes, but I've been
think?
here at Let's Go like about a year or almost a
Hmm.
year.
I thought so, definitely. I really believe in both of these communities. I also interact with Megan Pater's community, right? Megan P. from Let's Go Help Too.
Yeah.
And Julia May, who is the Mighty Networks expert for Let's Go Help Too, is starting to interact with my community as well. We're trading time, right? I don't have the money to pay for her wonderful and amazing skills, so we're bartering our time.
Yeah.
And so I talk about all of those communities because I really do believe in each of them, and each of them does sort of a different thing, right? So you guys will hear me talk about all of it. So thank you again,
Cool.
Jamie. And please,
Yeah, no worries.
Cindy, I'll ask you to unmute. She may have had to step away from her device.
Hi, Sabrina. How you doing?
Hi, Wendy. Good. And yourself?
I'm okay. I had a question. I live in a condo, so I wanted to. I feel like a first time mother for I have to plant my garden. Like I want to get the wire rack and make it look all pretty and get my patio in the back set up. But I don't know what to plant that is simple. Like I was thinking, like, should I get the seeds from my bell peppers and then try to plant it, or
Well,
like?
it's getting a little bit late in the year. You could probably consider getting your area ready for a fall garden, would be if you have the time to
But
get
I'm
it.
not doing a ground. I'm gonna be doing it in a pot.
Right. And
Yeah.
so even if, unless you went and got a really large tomato plant or something to that nature,
Hmm.
even with container gardening in the ground, it doesn't really matter. Well, I shouldn't say that. What area are you in, Wendy, if you
I'm
don't mind?
in Florida where it's hot.
Okay, that's a little bit different, right?
Hmm.
Not necessarily all of Florida, but it sounds like you maybe have a little bit longer growing season then.
Because
Okay, so definitely, yeah, you could do any of those different types of plants from seedlings to.
I don't know how my neighbors did it, but I've seen uh they have pigeon peas. Like there's a bush and they have pigeon peas, and I was like, how did they grow that there? So I
Oh
was like,
yeah.
yes. I was like, let me go ahead and try and do it in a pot. But I don't know. I was thinking of doing like the aromatics that we cook with because those are getting
Hmm.
pricey. So like bell peppers or
Hmm.
maybe onions, like pearl onions or something. So I
Onions,
don't.
you might be able to start from seed and still see some return in time this year. But if you wanted things like bell peppers and tomatoes, I would definitely suggest going with seedlings. Try not to get too many flowers on any seedling. Again, it's getting a little bit later in the year.
Okay.
You have a little bit longer growing season. So if they
Mhm.
already have the flowers on them, you'll probably have to transplant them to a bigger container, whether you go with the bags that are so popular
Mhm.
now or a
Okay.
more traditional kind of a container.
Mhm.
Roger White, he has a patio garden and he's got his in little raised beds on top of tables on his patio.
Oh,
And so there
okay.
are so many different ways that you can go about it. So if you want to start something from seed, while you have your container plants with your tomatoes and your peppers in it, you could start things like some broccoli or lettuces. You want to keep them in a cooler location and transplant them out as things are starting to go towards the cooler part of
Mhm.
the weather. So you probably want to wait until about next month, which is almost perfect for you because you
Okay.
have the time to get everything set up, get your container seedlings going, if that's something that you're going to do this year, and then be ready to start your seedlings indoor in a cooler area so that you could bring them out. When do your temperatures start lowering down more towards like the high 70s?
Mhm. Like probably like around like fall, like October, November.
So you might want to even wait just a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you'll provide me with your zip code, I've been thinking about how I could increase your experiences where you all are. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to do some CR personal reports. And so it'll be
Okay.
your personal report. And it's not going to have your name or anything in the titling like I used to do with the Lesko personal report. I think it'll be a lot cleaner to just have it called like my gardening report, something like that. And so yours will be the first one that I'll be exploring this with, Wendy. So what is your last name here in Collectively Rewilding so that I can get you tagged?
Lucius.
I probably just need the L. There you are. Oh, I love that name. There's a gentleman that has a very similar last name to yours.
Okay.
And that's just been a big play on that Lucius variation. It's not that common of a variation of a word.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then if you wouldn't mind sharing your zip code in Florida.
33179.
Okay, wonderful. And so you want to kind of replace some of the veggies that you use in your kitchen.
I would love to. The herbs like garlic, the herbs that we use it a lot in our cooking. You know, we make like kind of like a pesto and we cook with our rice and our meats, you know, stuff like that. So those are bought a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you
Garlic,
have
onion,
an overall
scallions, bell peppers.
Okay.
Huh?
You said scallions. I didn't have that one written down. I said, do you have
yeah, scallions. And that when I was researching, it says like, what is that called? Where I guess you stick it in water and let it root a little bit or sprout. Is that the right word?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, both are kind of right? One is going up and one is going down, right? Your sprouting is your stem and leaf structure, and your I can't remember. Help me with the other word that you utilize. Like I said, I'm out of it tonight. I'm not rooted. Yes, roots. That is going to be going down, right? So
I tried it. I didn't have the patience.
Right.
I probably have to start all over again.
It wasn't a thing that's ever worked very well for me. Again, container gardening is not my most successful, but I have finally conceded. I cannot keep the soil healthy year after year. You do just need to transplant them. So I'll probably start having more success with the container gardening. I've always been able to get them there and keep them alive, but never producing. The one year where I really should have had success, we got to 95 in May. There was no keeping almost anything alive, certainly not in bags and containers that didn't have good shade. So, but I definitely understand the principles of container gardening. Like Jamie said, I've been around it all of my life, and Anita might be here tonight as she is. My mother has the container green thumb that I do not have, and she manages to keep things alive without transplanting them very often. So I really do believe that each of us will find more and less success with different endeavors. That doesn't mean much about the ideology itself or our own, how shall I put it, our own competence. Perhaps if you've tried container gardening before and it didn't work, you might try a different style of container gardening if you're not able to do in-ground. Or if you've worked and worked and worked at a plot of gardening soil in the back and it's just not turning around for you, perhaps having an outdoor container garden would be more efficient for you, right? So there's always ways to modify what we're doing if we're not having success in a particular style. And so absolutely. So I will get that report put together for you. All I'm going to do is put your name up and tag you so that we both have something to return to get that personal report out. The other question I wanted to ask you is, what style of food do you return to over and over again the most? You know, like Italian or Mediterranean, comfort foods. What kind of overall food style is your most preferred?
Oh, it's a Caribbean.
Caribbean. Very fun.
Now, so that's why we use a lot of the herbs, the garlic, the thyme and the parsley and the cilantro, basil, oregano, you know, we use all those herbs and blend it and make it like a pesto. And that's what we season our meats and, you know, pasta or rice with, like rice and beans and stuff like that with.
All right,
all
wonderful.
the
And you know,
herbs.
in
Yeah.
Florida, you may have the option to go foraging for wild rice. That's not something
Yeah.
that's very possible here where I'm at. I don't know if there's anywhere that wild rice grows in the Four Corners area,
And I
but
wish I'd grown stuff when I had rabbits. I had rabbits and they loved celery, they loved cilantro, you know, so it would have been cheaper in my pockets to grow these herbs, you know.
and herbs are actually really easy most
Yeah.
of the time. There are definitely exceptions to every rule, but herbs are one of the easier things to grow most
Okay.
of the time.
Okay.
And so I have never looked into a Caribbean diet for garden purposes. I will have a lot of fun tearing that apart. And then what is the area size that you have to grow in?
What else? What did you have?
You're growing on a porch, or do you have a little backyard, or what?
Oh, it would be a porch because I'm on the second floor. It's a
Okay.
condo community, so I'm on the second floor.
And do you, what kind of dimensions do you have, just as a guesstimate?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
Like 5 feet by 3 feet, or 4 feet by
Lyra, how big do you think the patio is? How big do you think the patio is?
just as a rough estimate.
Rough estimate. How big you think the patio is? Like 5 by 3 or? Huh? Yeah, he said about 5 to 3.
Okay,
5 by 3. Yeah, it's
definitely.
not that big.
And are you guys wanting to have any tables or things like that?
I was thinking of getting. I thought it would be, you know, those like 3-tier type of wire racks, like you could buy at the garden shop, like say Home Depot or Lowe's, like one of those.
Okay, and so you
Or
want
should
to
I get a table?
really, you can do it however you want. With the heavier
Okay.
plants like your tomatoes and peppers, you're not going to want to put them on those shelves unless they're almost industrial level strength, right? They would
Okay.
be more for your ground area, and then
Okay.
your herbs would go really nicely on that shelf.
I
You can
thought so.
also
Yeah.
consider hanging,
Okay.
and you can even create a partial shade structure that's living, where you do things like hanging roses can get really thick if you wanted a thinner one, or one that was more edible, because roses are edible. But if you wanted something that was more useful, you could do things like green beans, or you mentioned pea.
I love the smell of rose oil. I wonder if I can make my own.
It's a little bit complicated to make an
Okay.
essential oil. You have to have a double broiler system. It
Oh,
definitely
never
can be
mind.
done. Yeah,
Never mind.
it's something I'm
I
really
love to
interested
cook,
in,
but when
but
it comes to that creation stuff, forget it.
absolutely. The
Someone told me that having a storage bin, like transferring it once it's, you know, sprout, like you could transfer it to a storage bin. That's a
That
better
would be
way.
a
Like,
great container.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
just make sure that you drill adequate drainage holes in the bottom of
Yes.
it,
Yes.
and then you don't want it to rest directly on the ground because they can nestle where your holes are. You need to make sure that there's room for the water to escape underneath
Okay.
the
Okay.
bin so that you don't get root rot, right?
Okay. Uh-huh.
And then that would be a very good size container.
Okay.
If you got the smaller cherry tomato sized plants and you have
Yes.
it nicely manicured, you might be able to fit 2 of those into one of the larger standard, you can get all these different sizes, but your larger standard bin that you'd see for like Christmas or something like that. You want it to be the thicker plastic ones, not the clear, thinner plastic ones, because you're putting a lot of weight in there, and you're going to have to wait to see how it bows out. And if you start seeing it bow out too much, you'll probably want to only put one in it and not fill it quite so high. So that'll be something that you'll have to play with when you're in the moment. For
Okay.
those plastic containers, you have to look at the weight to the thickness of the plastic.
And we have to put like something like a little stick for the tomato to wrap, the vines to wrap around, or?
Yes, you would. If you, on your patio, do you have the rail style grading, or do you have a more solid structure? What is your outer area?
Yeah, the outer area is just all screen.
All so
there's no rail or anything. So it's like just a screen, like a just all screen, like patio screen. So that's all it is. There's no rail or anything, or like a
Oh
balcony
my
type
gosh.
to look
Yeah.
down. No, yeah, it's all screen. Yeah.
I don't know that I completely understand.
I guess it's screened from top to bottom, and then like the bottom has maybe like a metal a wall or so. I guess
Okay.
if I'm
Okay.
describing it right,
But it's
but you
not
can see
open.
through.
Like you
No,
can't
it's
stick
not
your
open.
arm out
No,
above the
no,
railing.
not at all. No.
Okay. Very
So
interesting.
screened in.
So
Yeah, I
you
don't
could
know why they
definitely
had it
use
like that,
like
but yeah.
a tomato cage or a pole. Either way would work.
Yeah.
And then I would probably try to keep it off if it gets tall enough to reach that screening, that mesh. I
Yes.
would try to keep it off, or it's going to make a horrible, horrible mess for you,
Oh
right?
wow. Okay.
Yeah, because when you do you own the condo?
No.
Okay,
Renting.
so yeah,
And
when you want to move, you'd
a
have to
senior
clean all of.
community. Yeah,
Gotcha.
a senior community. Yeah.
So if you have to move, you have to clean all of that out of that space,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
you don't want that. So, but when you have such a small area, I found that when I had my little patio garden, my plants became like my babies, just like my pets and my children.
Yes.
I watched
Yes.
every little leaf and got every little bad leaf off of it and things. It was really quite fun. I really did have a good time, even though that was the year that it was so hot, where I did start seeing the success because I just accepted that I can't
Yeah.
continue to get tomatoes or peppers out of recycled soil. I have to go through a process that can happen, but not year after year with the same soil in the same container. So we had a lot of initial success before the heat
Okay.
killed everything. And
Yeah.
we kept a few of the plants alive, just not producing. And it was so neat, even though they weren't producing, keeping such a close eye on the plants. So I hope you
Okay.
find that experience as well pleasant for yourself.
Yeah. I'm just want to give the experience. Because growing up, I seen my father. He had like, oh my God, a mango tree, grapefruit, pigeon peas, lime,
Oh,
onion.
nice.
He had yam,
Mhm.
the white
That was the
yam.
one thing that we did have really good success that year. In
Hmm.
these bags, we were able to find a little bit shadier area for the sweet potatoes and the yams, and we had a lot of yams and a few sweet potatoes.
But I
So,
was traumatized because
oh
my dad
no.
would come running with the machete because I would say, "Daddy, snake!"
Mm.
It would be snakes because our next door neighbor had a chicken coop.
Ah,
So the snakes would come, for the eggs or the chicken, and oh man. But yeah, the garden was beautiful from front to back. We had a
oh, how
beautiful
nice.
garden. Yeah, so that's what I remembered, and ever since then, I wanted to do something like that. Until I get my own home, I wanted
Absolutely.
to learn how to plant. Yeah.
And so we should definitely work over in Lesko Help too on getting that for you. But in the meantime, you
Hmm.
can have a gorgeous retreat, much like what you talk about from both your and Jamie's past, these environments that just envelop you into them and make you feel so pleasant. Some of
Yeah.
the things that you can do for much more inexpensive type of a beginning. And it's a little too late. So next year, if you have Dollar Trees, something like that in your area,
Yeah. Yes.
they have decent little wire backs that you can put in, like
Oh.
trellises,
Okay.
and not for a real heavy plant, but
Okay.
for some of the smaller plants, you can
Hmm.
use that. And you can also do things like you're talking about a pole, you can get yardsticks relatively
Yes.
inexpensively and some things like that, and just be creative. And then you can color on them with different types of non-toxic media, whether you use paint or something like that, especially
Hmm.
above the ground, just to make it a little more pleasant. And you can even make a play off of the rulers if you use the rulers and build them a little bit like a lattice.
Okay.
But you would not be really probably trying for that crisscross angling unless you're very handy with your tools. You can wrap them with twine even.
Okay.
Or again, the lighter weight plants, if you start getting into the heavier plants, you'd want to connect them with something more like a tie wrap. You know, it used to be wire, but that can get so rusty and yucky and dangerous that I'm not a big lover of plastic, but I do recommend avoiding wire in the garden setting and
Okay.
heavier duty tie wrap.
Because it rusts, right?
It will rust. Yes,
Yeah, I
it
don't
will
like that
eventually, even if
smell.
it has, you know, coatings and things like that. It
Yeah, I don't
can
like the smell of I don't want to do that to my
Mhm.
plants. Yeah, I
And you
hate
also
that.
don't want to scratch yourself with it, whether,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it has because if you're in a garden setting, it can have the 3 elements that can cause lockjaw, right? So
Mhm.
that requires rust, dirt, and feces. Those 3 together will create the conditions that can cause, and I'm forgetting the more medical term, but lockjaw and tetanus. There we go. That can cause tetanus, and we don't want to introduce that possibility
No.
in our
Mm,
garden, right? So,
no, no, I don't. Yeah, I don't want that or
mhm.
whatever. And yeah, I can't wait to try at least one because to actually grow my herbs or my garlic. Garlic, I want to really grow.
Garlic will take a little bit of time, right? Like in
Yeah.
your area,
Mhm.
you could probably you can't go get your garlic bulbs from the grocery store. You need to get them online from a reputable source or from a garden store or Lowe's, Home Depot, something like that.
Yeah.
And then I would imagine, I know there are smaller variations with the onions. I've never specifically looked into smaller garlic bulbs for container.
Mm-hmm.
hmm Let's see if they have something along those lines.
Sometimes when I do grocery shopping on the app, I would see some like a third party selling some seeds that will pop up. Like if I'm shopping on Walmart.
Well, garlics are they're in
Yeah.
the allium family. They're a bulb
Mhm.
plant like onions.
Mhm.
And so they do have a small bulb variety, it looks like. So
Yeah. Anything I look for, I would see some like a third party selling like seeds or something, say like Scotch bonnet peppers or bell peppers that have the seeds for
mhm.
it.
Oh,
And
yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Bell peppers and things like that.
Yeah.
However, you may not have the greatest turnaround if you tried to grow something like that from seed this year, right? Like you can start that next year in your area, probably in February or
Okay.
something
Okay.
like
Yeah.
that. So this is a great year for you to get set up, get started,
Okay.
have a few
Mhm.
seedlings, like a tomato plant, a bell pepper plant, and you can start your herbs and maybe have your herbs grow mostly outdoors all year round there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I just need to look at your zip code and compare that to a couple
Okay.
of different things. I'll throw a couple of ideas at you, whether
Uh,
you go with ground, your shelving, maybe some not terracing, but trellising to provide a shade area if you're interested in that. And
mhm.
then you'll have a variety to pick from to design your
And we do
area.
have a bit of shade.
Mhm.
And we're like in the front, we're surrounded by lakes. So, we have that cool air that comes in too. So,
Nice. I should have asked you what kind of sun you get on your porch.
uh, Leroy, do we get much sun on the porch? We get much sun, like a certain spot, right? On the porch for planting. Yeah, there's a spot. It's more shade
It's
than
more
sun,
shade.
but we do get a spot that does have the sun.
All right. So your herbs are
Yeah.
going to be a little more forgiving with the shade than
Okay.
like tomatoes or bell peppers.
Okay.
And so another thing sometimes that can be considered in a condominium apartment style setting
Yes.
is a possibility of talking to the owners of the property about rooftop gardens or perhaps a community garden in the grassy area of your complex. Some
Actually,
are more,
down the hall, there's an area where a neighbor used to plant there. So I will see what it's like. And the sun always beam on that side.
that's
Um,
nice. So
so
yeah,
yeah,
if you're able to use that, that will
yeah,
greatly
a little
increase
table
your
over
ability.
there. But yeah, exactly.
And I'm guessing that you're not dry in your area, that you get a pretty good amount of natural precipitation.
Yes.
Okay, that's going to really help you. When I had to do a porch garden and I was in the second story and I had to get down to those containers, it was that really hot year that we talked about. and I couldn't hook up a hose or anything like that. So I literally had to transport the water by hand to take care of all of them.
Oh,
And like I
wow.
said, I was able to keep them alive. I don't know that I could have gotten them to produce in most of the locations, no matter how much I was able to water. It was just that bad of a year that unless you already had a well-established garden with mulch and all of your systems set up for sprinklers and things like that, it was
Yeah.
going to be impossible. So it was really
That's a
hard on small
good thing I'm
gardeners.
not on the first floor. I probably would have had to fight with the iguanas. We got iguanas everywhere. Yeah. I would try to come and eat my bell peppers. Yeah.
Very interesting. I've never had that particular experience, but I've definitely heard about it.
Yeah, they say they're very, very big, like look like pit bulls, mini pit bulls. They're so big. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I hope that's an exaggeration.
No.
Oh
They're
no.
big. They're really big.
That's really. Are you
Very
talking
big and
about something
long.
called tegus? Are they black and white? Or are they really
They're
basic
green.
iguanas?
Yeah, they're green. And then I don't know where the other ones come from. There's one that was red, but I know that wasn't normal. Somebody dropped that one around here. Whatever,
Oh,
but
not good.
it was like orangey red. I
Oh,
was like, if y'all don't get that thing away from here, I was like,
it'll probably start reading.
yeah, I'm telling
Oh,
you, alligators come. This alligator came out and he was just suntanning and people were just taking pictures like he was a celebrity. I said, can somebody call 911, please? I was
animal control.
but
Oh my
they said we
goodness.
can't do anything. We have to call the animal,
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
property have to call. Yeah. But if he ain't bothering nobody, I said, yeah, but he's not supposed to be in our lake. Like,
No, invasive species are a real problem, right? Again, how do we want to impact our environment? So,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
your
So,
area is so right to be invaded because it is
yeah.
such an easy area for plants and animals to live in,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And so we got ducks, foxes, raccoons. Yeah.
Very interesting and very different than what we have out here where it's so sparse in comparison, right? It would be
Colorado is more dry, right?
Colorado, Utah, Nevada, Arizona, New
Oh,
Mexico, Idaho,
if you say
California.
Arizona, then I got it.
Yeah, it's all pretty dry. Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada being the three driest of the areas that I've lived in, but it's
And you
definitely
say wooded area, like type woodsy area?
that's where you're in.
No, you.
We actually are in a very tree-filled area because of the intervention of humans. This area is more towards high desert, grassy area. We're right before the foothills of the Ochre Mountains, the Ochre Hills and Mountains, and so that's a smaller chain here in
It's
Utah.
like I have no idea what is that.
Yep.
Only
So,
one time we went up to the northern part of Georgia. It's like
okay.
20 minutes away from North Carolina. So our Airbnb was in North Carolina, and I understood what it meant of brisk. The air is brisk. I said, "Oh, this is what this means." I was like, "It's so clear and beautiful," but I don't know what they are. I don't know if they're called yellow jackets or wasps. They were trying to get in the house, like they get stuck in the windowsill between the screen and the window. And then we went to a wedding at a national park and I got chased by one. Oh my God, I ran. I was like,
Well,
ah!
I can tell you it
I was
doesn't
like,
matter what
I don't know
kind
if it
of.
was my perfume or what, but it chased me. I was like, so I was like, I'm not coming here anymore. But
If you're
yeah,
fearful of them, they will really go for you. They
exactly.
smell, yeah, they smell fear. It's a pheromone, and
Oh
they smell
no.
it. So you want to try to remain calm, and they won't bother you at all. I walk through. They do seem to be very mild mannered wasps, but I walk through wasps when I go and
It's
check
so
on all
big.
of the whole yard. And as long as I don't attack them,
Yeah.
they don't even care that I'm out there. They just keep doing
Okay.
their thing, and I just keep doing my thing. My husband mows. They don't bother him.
It was
So it's
beautiful. I mean, the creek was, you hear the water rushing through the creek as they're walking up the aisle. It was beautiful, but
yeah.
it's
Well, don't let the
beautiful.
wasps
I don't
or
know
the
if I could
hornets
stay
deter
there.
you. Really, I promise you that for the most part, they will leave you alone. You want to
Yeah.
get spiders just off of you. Who knows what those guys are thinking? Get them off of you, but really calmly, just kind
Yeah.
of blowing at something like a wasp that's on your shoulder as a
Yes.
for instance,
Yes.
and not getting scared, they will eventually leave you alone. If you have a perfume, they might keep bothering you, but if you don't startle them or aggress at
Okay.
them, they will almost never sting you. So,
But it was beautiful. I actually found out what like alpine smell like. It was
oh
really,
yeah,
I was like, oh, that's what, the city is different. We don't get that smell.
And so, are you inland towards the coast?
Yeah, we're really in the city. City.
But is
Yeah,
it like inland city or coastal city?
inland.
Inland city.
But
Okay.
coastal is not far at all.
Nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. So
Yeah.
maybe not quite as dangerous for the weather, but you still get to go and play when you want to.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I have some family down in Florida, so
Oh, okay.
I've never been that far. I have made it to New York one time, got to see the Canadian border. It was up in the Tonawanda, Buffalo area, so that was neat. But I'm a Westerner, and the farthest I've really been is Texas. So.
Yeah, we have a friend in Arizona that she said it's 110 or something like that right now. So
You've been to
Arizona,
Missouri, Sabrina.
Oh yeah, that's true. I have been to Missouri. I forget about that one. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. That was the wettest place that I've ever been to, for sure.
Well, thank you. I can't wait for you to pass me on the information whenever you get a chance.
Absolutely.
Well,
All right, guys. Well, we probably ought to shut down for the night. I do have a class starting up over in Lesko Help 2 in about 45 minutes. And actually, let me share the screen here really quickly and go to the calendar. Our next class here in Collectively Rewilding is going to be this Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Mountain, 9:30 p.m. Central, and 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see you all there. And I will be joining those of you interested in the office hours and more class over in Let's Go Help 2 in about 45 minutes. Please feel free to unmute yourselves and say goodnight, everyone. Thank you all for joining me.
Good night.
Good night, Sabrina.
Good night, guys. Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, guys.